Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Meredith. It's good to see everyone. This is workshop 4, course selection. We're all very excited to have you here today. My name is Meredith and I'm from Woodsworth College Registrar Office. I'm joined today with Natasha, Duran, Winnie, Anna, and we're all very excited to have you join today. So we've actually had all other workshops before. Hopefully you've attended some of the other ones. We've had some great ones. We've had one on our workshop 1 is study permits. So for anyone who's an international student and you may need to apply for a study permit, I would recommend watching that one. That one is a very important piece of studying at the University of Toronto. Then we move to transitioning into U of T. The workshop 2 is all about that transition and the supports and resources that are here. Workshop 3 is when we really get into the big degree goals. So looking at what we're trying to accomplish at the University of Toronto within the Faculty of Arts and Science and what we're trying to achieve and accomplish with our degrees, along with some first year opportunities. But this one, I feel, is when things really get started. I can tell a lot of you are thinking about course enrollment. And so what I'm going to do with this session is walk you through that process. And so I'm very excited. We have a great number of people, and I'm so glad that all of you have joined us today. So how today will work, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be a lot of me chatting. So about 50 minutes is going to be of me chatting. Not that whole time. There's still going to be some polls. So watch out for those polls. I'm going to ask some questions and ask that you are part of those polls with me. Mostly it's just to see where we're all at. Just know that I know a lot of students have different familiarities with the university. Some of us know some of us have some idea of how to choose courses and whatnot. Just know if you don't know, that's okay. Just go ahead and participate in the poll anyways. I'm not keeping track. So really, this is a way for you to just see where you're at and also to yeah, just participate and be part of this. So I'm going to talk about some course enrollment goals. Then I'm going to lead you through 6 steps through the course enrollment process. So I guess the big thing here is just acknowledging the fact that course enrollment process is complex. There's multiple things to keep. Part of the good thing is it's June. And so you'll be choosing courses in July. So we have lots of time to still do our research. In my opinion, anyone who's part of this process, who's watching part of this workshop, you're ahead of the game. Okay, so you're in a really good place. So starting this now is really helpful. Throughout this, we're also going to walk through Misha's course enrollment process. I'm going to introduce you to someone named Misha. We're going to go through how they're going to choose courses, and I'll walk you through that. Then we're going to do a timetable builder demo. So timetable builder is a really helpful tool that all of us use. And then we're going to do ACORN enrollment reminders. Lastly, there will be a Q&A function. So if you are a little bit, maybe you have some questions, know that you can mark them down and there will be time closer to the end where you're going to be able to ask that. Also, there will be a moment where we're going to break out into our admission categories and you'll be able to ask advisors and unmute and ask those questions that you may have during that time. So with that conversation about admission categories, if I can ask all of you to change your name, I would love to still see your name, but if you could maybe add at the end math and physical sciences or humanities, life sciences, social sciences, or whatever admission category you're part of, that's helpful for us because then we have an idea of like the goals that you have. So all of you have asked some really great questions. I asked some questions during registration. I just want to acknowledge that I see these questions with the questions that you've asked. All of them are pretty good questions. So questions like, how can I select courses? When can I choose the course? How can I sign up for U of T email? What courses do Rotman students usually take if you have an AP credit? What kind of electives to take in first year? How can I switch from social sciences to humanities? I would like to, someone asked, I would like guidance on how to choose my courses, create my timetable, and understand the requirements of my program. All of these questions are really good. I want to acknowledge that we're going to talk a lot about these in our workshop. I've highlighted the ones about how do I sign up for you to email, what courses do Rotman students have to take, mostly because those ones in the AP credit, those ones we may not touch on, but we can talk about in our credit, in our question and answer period. So, also someone asked a really good question. How do I create a backup plan? Um, that one's really, I think the biggest way that you can pick up a backup plan is when you're thinking about choosing your courses, have multiple programs in mind. You might have one in mind, but if you have multiple, like 3 to 5 programs in mind during this process, you're naturally going to be creating some backup plans so that when you choose programs, you have multiple to choose from. And then can certain courses overlap and meet requirements for major and minor? Certainly. That's exactly the point. Like there's going to be some overlap. Of course, the degree requirements ask like there is like you need a certain number that aren't overlapping, but just know it is normal for overlapping to happen, especially in first year. Okay, so before we get into things, I do want to highlight that there is a summer to-do list in Quirkus. You're all enrolled into this Welcome to Woodsworth Quirkus shell. So if you're not, if for some reason you can't access it, there is a QR code right here that you can join, and I'll share that in a moment. But let me show you what the Welcome to Woodsworth Quirkus shell. We're going to be talking about some really helpful information, but if you look in here, there's like 9 different modules here. There's so much information. You don't have to read it all at once, okay? It's best to actually look through it little by little. The summer to-do list, I think, is very helpful because the summer to-do list breaks down steps that you can do in June, July, August, all the way into September. So that's helpful. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about orientation. So there's information about orientation through Woodsworth. We're still in the planning stage, but that information will certainly pop up as we get closer. And then I like just know that to participate in Woodsworth, there are tickets. So have that in your mind if you want to participate in Woodsworth orientation. There are some tickets, but there are also no cost orientation events. And then there's orientation events across the campus that I think are really important to mention as well. So orientation events like transfer student orientation, Black student orientation, queer orientation, Indigenous student orientation, orientation for students with family responsibilities, and the mature student welcome. The whole idea of orientation is one to get familiar with the campus, but also be in situations where you can meet people because within the first few weeks, that is a lot of like getting acclimatized with the university, get to know where we are, orient ourselves, but also meet new people. So there's lots of different opportunities for that. I think the big highlights here is if you're interested in applying to Flick, July 2nd is that deadline, and July 13th is for registering with accessibility services. Some other important dates is around course enrollment. So we'll talk more about what these dates mean, but July 1st is the date when you can log into ACORN and find the specific date and time as to when you can actually enroll in courses. So you're given a window of opportunity to enroll in courses, and the goal is actually to enroll as soon as possible in that window so you get the best chance of enrolling into your courses. For upper years, so July 16th is that date for first year course enrollment. For upper year transfer students, then the date could change depending on the number of credits you have. So if you have 4 to 8.5, it's July 13th. If it's 9 to 13.5, it's July 8th. And if it's July 6th, if you have more than 14 credits, then it's July 6th. Then what happens is there's a period called the general enrollment period that starts July 24th. And so that's when, if you don't have certain access to certain courses, which I'll talk about, then it lifts. And then during a general enrollment period, you may be able to enroll in those other courses that you didn't have access prior to. We can definitely look into it. Okay, now it's our time for myth or fact. So if Natasha, if you can, perfect. So Natasha has launched the poll for myth or fact. So the first one. Myth or fact? I need to know my major before I enroll in courses. True or false? Myth or fact? Everyone gets all their first choice courses. True or false? Okay, so what I have here is that The majority of you say, so 72% say false. No, I don't need to know my major courses. And for the most part, I would agree with you. I would also agree with the people who said true as well. This one is, it is good to have an idea of what programs you're enrolled in because they definitely inform the courses you choose in first year. But our academic goals change or we find a new program we're interested in. So in one way, it's good to be, I think it reflects the whole undergrad process. Like we are thinking about the end goal in mind. We are thinking about what are academic goals and what we need to achieve to get to that. But we know that it changes and that we have to be flexible to what our new academic goals are as we come across them or maybe we just change our mind on things, and both of those are possible. So, in one way, yes, it's good to know what your majors are, but in another way, it's okay if you still don't know or if they change. In fact, a lot of you are feeling like not very confident about getting into your first choice courses. I see 97% say false. Not everyone gets into their first choice courses. And so in a way, I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, I also want to reinforce that the majority of you will probably get into a lot of the courses you want. I think that there's ways to prepare for that. One is knowing what courses you want to enroll into and planning for that, knowing for backup programs, if you don't get into that first choice, what will still serve the purpose of getting into the program you want. Um, and and just signing in on that first day when your window opens. So the other thing to keep in mind is that you're in an admission category, and those admission categories give priority to the courses you need for program enrollment. So if you're feeling a little anxious about getting into those courses, just know we do have some control, like things set up in place to allow for that. Natasha, you can stop sharing for that. Brilliant. Okay, so let's move on. So the other thing is we have a course enrollment checklist. So in that Welcome to Woodsworth site that I shared before, it is just acknowledging the fact that there are a lot of steps that are included with the course enrollment checklist. So I would say take a look at that and trust that with that, that'll also help guide you through the course enrollment. All right, so now, just a quick recap. Workshop 3 was all about degree requirements. And in those degree requirements, it states that you need to you need to enroll into one specialist or two majors or one major and two minors. So those programs are part of the degree and you do need to pick a program. So to enroll into the programs, we need to take specific courses. So when we look at our first year course selection goals, we have to keep in mind that program. So the first goal is to fulfill our enrollment and first year completion requirements of those programs. So that is a key goal that's connected to our program, which is then connected to our degree. Then the other goal that we're hoping to do with our first year courses is fulfill prerequisites for our 200 level courses that we plan to take in second year. So we should look at our upper year courses, see what might be potential prerequisites and account for that with our first year courses. Maybe we'll satisfy some breadth requirements. If you're not sure what those are, we'll talk a little bit about that later on. There's a whole bit about that in workshop 3. But I also want to reinforce that your course selection goals should allow you to explore some interests. Some of you might know exactly what you want to enroll into for programs. Some of us might still be in that exploration phase. Part of that exploration phase is looking into the program. So looking through the academic calendar right now, that will really help set you up. But just know that first year also allows you to. And so what we thought we might like, maybe we took courses at another college or at another high school or another university. Maybe we took it in another place, but then when we're here in the Faculty of Arts and Science, that might have changed. Maybe we don't necessarily like taking that course here, or maybe like I said, there's over 400 programs within the Faculty of Arts and Science. So you might come across a program, you most likely will. And if you are interested in looking further in depth that, like, this is your chance to do that. And so if you're interested in that, my advice is follow that. Of course, maybe book an appointment with an academic advisor and we can help guide you through that. But exploring your interest should certainly be part of your first year course selection goals. So I did talk about program enrollment. I do want to just clarify, some of you may like, it is natural for us to feel like we're in our programs right now. But I do want to clarify, right now unless you're an upper year student, we are not actually in programs right now. We're in admission categories. So if you've been accepted to computer science admission category or social science or humanities or math and physical science, life science, those are admission categories. They're not necessarily the programs. So we're actually going to be choosing programs at the end of first year once you achieve 4 credits if you're taking courses on a full-time basis. And so there's open and limited programs. Open programs, you're automatically accepted once you achieve 4 credits. Well, limited programs you have to apply to. And so limited programs, sometimes there's specific courses you need to take, and sometimes there's a grade associated with that. So I have some examples to show you. When we look at the programs, there's going to be enrollment requirements and completion requirements. Enrollment requirements, as it kind of says, those are the requirements you need to complete in order to enroll into that program to be eligible. Now, the completion requirements in the academic calendar, they're going to be the requirements that you need to achieve to complete the requirements in order to graduate. So this is an introduction to that 6-piece course enrollment process. So first, what I'm going to take you through is listing the programs and noting their requirements. Then we're going to take the courses that we found are requirements and make a list of them and find out the total number of credits. Then from there, we're going to build out our elective list. Maybe we'll include some breadth requirements. We'll talk about course load, how we pick a course load that's perfect for us. Then we'll talk about the timetable, and lastly, we'll talk about those tips with enrolling into ACORN. So let's start with listing out our programs. And this is where I'm going to introduce you to Misha. Now, Misha was admitted to social science admission category. Now, one thing I want to remind you is Misha, well, I guess let's continue. So Misha is not sure what they want to study, but after looking through the academic calendar, they decide that psychology, human geography, and chemistry feel like a good fit. Now, some of you might notice chemistry is not part of the social science, is not like you might put that more with life science. So if you're in social science, I do want to highlight that you can be interested in programs outside of your admission category. It just might be a little bit more tricky getting into those courses that are needed for life science courses. Similarly, if you're a life science student or a Rotman commerce student or computer science, if you're interested in an arts program, maybe you might be considering like a minor in something that is a little bit different from what you are in the admission category. Just know you can. It's just the enrollment requirements are what you need to look in. The admission categories shouldn't be restrictive. So let's dive more in depth here. So the action items, if Misha came to an appointment with me and we were picking their courses, these are the action items I would tell them. I would say first, check to see if your programs are open or limited. Then list out the enrollment requirements. Check to see if there are any 100 level completion requirements in the academic calendar. And then highlight any requirements where you can see a full list of courses that you need to do more research into. And you might be like, what does that mean? I'll certainly show you and it'll become more clear in a moment. So let's look at psychology. So this is the psychology. This is taken from the academic calendar. And so right away, I've highlighted that it's a limited enrollment program. The other thing I want to highlight here is that the enrollment requirements have 2 different sets. It says students who've completed between 4 and 8.5 credits and students who've completed more than 9 credits. And so this is because depending on where you are in your degree, you might have different set of requirements. In this case, Misha is coming into Faculty of Arts and Science without any transfer credits. So they're looking at the 4 to 8.5 credits. And in that case, the requirements say psychology 100 with a grade at least of 75%. And that's just to be considered. So knowing that to be competitive, Misha might need to get higher than 75. But then it also says grade 12 calculus and grade 12 biology. Fortunately, Misha had that taken care of in high school. And so they've taken that. So psychology 100 is that requirement. So from there, I like to put, and then let's look at the completion requirements. And what's wonderful is Psych 100 is also listed in the completion requirements for the 100 levels. So what I like to do is I like to create a chart. I am dividing up the different programs and then also listing the enrollment requirements and completion requirements. So we know the enrollment requirements are Psych 100 with a 75% grade. And then the completion requirements match that. So if we're going to include a course in our plan, it's going to be Psych 100. Great, we got that one taken care of. Now let's move on to human geography. Human geography also is a limited enrollment program. This one's interesting because it provides two different ways that a student can enroll into a program. So they can either do a half credit in GGR courses at the 100 or 200 level with a minimum grade of 67. Or if they want a little bit more room with their grades, they can do a full credit and then that minimum grade shifts down to 63. So that's interesting. So there's a little flexibility there. Let's look at the completion requirements. This says that there are any two courses from the 1 credit level here that can work towards first year geography. So in human geography. So any 2 credits from this list. Now, when I look at this is what I mean. It's a little bit like when I look at this, I don't know which of those I would pick. So that signals to me that we need to do more research on those specific courses. So I've listed the enrollment requirements, the half credit at 67 or a 1 credit in GGR at 63. The completion requirements say 1 credit at 100 level or JEG 100. So in the course plan, that's where we are at. We need to find out, okay, what's actually going to be in our course plan. So this is a reminder, we need to highlight any set where there is a list that we need to pick from. So from here, I'm going to highlight in red. We need to choose from that list of 100 level GGR courses and pick 1 credit from that, or JEG 100. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. We've highlighted it in the chart. Okay, we're good, but I'm going to, before we go into that, let's look at chemistry. So chemistry, again, is a limited program, and it says that you need to achieve, Misha needs to take Chem 135 and 136. So that's when it's in between brackets, that means you need to take, and if it's separated by a comma, that means you need to take both of them. And then the slash means or. So it's Chem 135 and 136 or Chem 151, Y1. Okay, that's interesting. And then the other thing is a final grade lower than 60. So you need at least 63% to be considered. Okay, so there is a grade component here. The completion requirements, okay, so that chemistry is there, but you might notice there's also a math component. Okay, that's interesting. So now we both have a chemistry component and a math component. So that's why looking at the completion requirements is super helpful when looking at our course planning. Okay, so we have our enrollment requirements, we have our completion requirements, and again, I'm going to highlight that in red because it is, let's look into how Misha would go about doing that research. Okay, so for this, I'm actually going to put it towards you when looking at this. So Natasha, if you can launch, brilliant, thank you so much. Okay, so Misha has a set of chemistry, math, and human geography courses to take. How do they choose? Select all that apply. Brilliant. Okay. So I would say, okay, I'm pretty impressed. Either you kind of know what I would want you to do, or you guys have really good instincts. So 98% of you say read course descriptions. Yes. Okay. That is correct. Look at upper year prerequisites. We talked about that. 98% of you said yes, look at that. 100% of you said check department programs for guidance. That's also something, as an academic advisor, I would certainly request. Of course, I know the others will certainly play into your decision making, like what your friends are taking, how it fits into your timetable. I think that will certainly, and of course, looking at social media, I know students do that. Just know that whatever you read on there isn't 100% correct or true. But if I do, as academic advisors, we do know that you do that. So I do appreciate that you're all honest and that you're sharing that. And I mean, it is a way of sharing information, but as an academic advisor, I certainly would say read course descriptions. I think a lot of students forget that step because the course descriptions are really informative to let you know who are those courses directed to? Is it directed to someone in a major, in a specialist, or a minor? Or is it for someone in a different admission category? Again, those upper year prerequisites are super helpful because that makes sure that we're set up for are second, third, and fourth years. And the departments and programs, not all of them have things there, but a lot of them do. So let's, Natasha, you can stop sharing that. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about that human geography major requirement. It says 1 credit from the 100 level GGR or JEG. So Misha does their research. So they looked on the geography department. They actually found nothing. So that does happen, okay? But that's okay. They look at the prerequisites for 200 level courses. There really isn't any specific prerequisites. It seems pretty flexible, but JEG is noted as a recommended preparation. So that is interesting. The big thing is for this, Misha gets to follow their interest here, okay? So they look at the course descriptions and they find that GGR 101 Histories of Environmental Change is interesting. So is GGR 112 Geopolitics, Globalization, and Inequity, along with GGR 124 Cities and Urban Life. So here's another scenario. Natasha, if you could share this one. Based on this information, what would you think is the most reasonable next step for Misha? A, enroll in GGR 101, 112, and GGR 124. Misha should follow their interest. B, enroll in JEG 100 since it is a recommended preparation for upper year courses and possibly another GGR course at the 100 level. C, well, the program enrollment requirement technically states Misha only needs a half credit. So Misha should take one GGR course if they're interested and keep room for other program areas. Or D, Misha knows they are interested in geography. They should take GGR 338 and get ahead. Let's see what is there. We'll let that go for a minute or two. And you guys are really active. I just want to say thank you so much for participating with this. Like, I love seeing how I think everyone's doing a really good job. So let's see. There we go. Okay, so okay, you can share the results, Natasha. Okay, so let's take a look. So okay, I would say I agree with you for the most part. So the most popular one is B, enroll in JEG 100 since it's recommended preparation for upper year courses in the program and possibly another GGR. So yes, I think that's the that that is the one that Misha's going to pick. But C is also perfectly okay. Like if maybe you're in Misha's situation and you're not really sure, half credit is okay in this case because that is technically the program enrollment requirement. So that is completely okay. Maybe you are more interested in other program areas, and this human geography is just there to keep your options open. I do want to acknowledge D is not correct. And the only reason it's unless you're an upper year student. If you're an upper year transfer student and you have the prerequisites, you certainly can. But just remember, those 300 level courses are meant for students who've already completed 100 and 200 level courses. If you need to make sure you have the prerequisites in order to enroll. So I would probably say, Misha, you're not quite ready for it. Like that is not intended for students who are coming in without any transfer credits and without any prerequisites. So probably B or C. And then A, I would probably stay away from taking all three. I mean, you certainly can because it might, but I think there is a maximum of 1 credit for at the 100 level for the requirement for that major. So I would probably stick to 1 credit for that. So, okay, you can stop sharing. Natasha, thank you all. That was great. So wonderful. Like I said, Misha went ahead and chose JEG 100 and GGR 124. So we're good for that one now. Now the big one, chemistry. Let's figure out what Misha's going to pick for that. So Misha, just as a reminder, needs to pick a chemistry component. There's Chem 135 and Chem 136 or Chem 151. Okay. So Misha looks at the chemistry department website, and they actually have a really wonderful guide to first year courses. And in the academic calendar, it also states in both pages, it states Chem 151 is strongly recommended by the department for potential specialists and majors. Okay, that's good to know. And then now a reminder, Misha needs to choose between Math 130, 136, Math 135 and 136, or C, Math 149 and 148, or Math 158 and Math 159. So for this one, what's also nice is that the math department also has a really wonderful first year course page. And also Misha looked at the course descriptions too. One thing they learned is Math 148 and 149 and 158 and 159 involve more abstract math, while Math 135 or 130 and Math 136 are default for science. Now, Misha knows that they're not interested in math. Proofs and whatnot is not necessarily serving their goals. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now the big thing, okay, so Misha wants to take Math 135, 130, Math 136. It's the default for science. They are in science, and that's their academic goals. Now, the big question is, do they take Math 130 or Math 135? That's the big question here. Now, when Misha looks into the math department, like their first year course overview, they learn that Math 130 and 135 is actually the same course. It's just a little bit different when it comes to their examples. But the big thing is Math 130 is for students in the life science admission category, while Math 135 is for students outside of the life science admission category. So with that in mind, there's a lot to include here, but I am going to go into scenario number 3. So if you can share that, Natasha, thank you so much. So based on this information, what do you think would be a most reasonable next step? Enroll in Chem 151 since it's recommended, along with Math 148 and 149, because math courses include proofs, these specific ones, and it helps them get into the chemistry program. Or does Misha enroll in Chem 151 since it's recommended, and Math 135 and 136 is what they would want, because remember, Misha is in the social science admission category. Or C, enroll in Chem 135, 136, Math 135, Math 136, because Misha prefers half credit courses. So the big benefit of this is they take Chem 135 in the fall and they realize chemistry isn't what they expected. They can shift out that Chem 136 in the winter. So Misha really values that flexibility. Which one makes sense here? So let's take a look. So it's pretty evenly split, and I can completely understand. And in a way, they can all be correct in their own way. I would say the most correct would probably be B, because Misha does have an idea that they like chemistry. They might be doing a major, maybe even a specialist. They don't really know. So taking that Chem 151 can really help them out, maybe for their upper year courses, for their, like maybe it's a prerequisite for other courses that lead to other third or fourth year courses for majors. I also think the Math 135 is super helpful because, like I said, kind of in the question, it's for social science admission category, and it's dedicated for students in life, in sciences. So, but of course, some of us, like you might be thinking about yourself in this situation. Some of you might be interested in chemistry and also interested in math. Maybe you have that math and physical science aspect goal of yours. If Misha did, A would make sense. You know, Math 148 and 149 do also satisfy the requirement. But I would strongly recommend if Misha chose that, I'd be like, Math 148 and 149 isn't going to help you get into the chemistry program. It's not necessarily even going to help prepare you more for those courses, because chemistry doesn't necessarily, like, I don't, like, it may not include proofs, you know, does it really help you? I don't know. If the recommendation for math is to take Math 135 or 130 and Math 136, then I would probably go to that, because the goal here is to get the highest grade possible in chem to secure a spot in the chemistry program. So depending on what your goals are, you may want to pick Math 135 and 136 because that fits more with the science goals versus math. But if Misha was looking at math too, then Math 148 and 149 would make sense. And C would also make sense. Of course, Math 130, I just want to highlight. Oh, wait, that was a mistake on my end. It should say Math 135. But C would also make sense, because what's nice about taking Chem 135 and 136 is if Misha finds that chemistry isn't what they're interested in, they certainly can switch out their Chem 136 in the winter term and fill it with something else. So it allows for more flexibility. All right, let's move on. Okay, look at this. This is wonderful. We've gone through the process. We've done some research and we have our courses that we need for programs. So that is wonderful. So now what we want to do, as you can see, that research piece, and we are already like 38 minutes into this. So that was like a big chunk. Okay, maybe we spent like 30 minutes, but it's a big chunk of the program planning. So researching is a big part. Now these next few steps will be a little bit less. So, but now what we want to do is we want to take those courses that are needed for programs and make a full list and find out how much of our course load will be dedicated to our programs. So this is pretty easy. I've written them out. The H courses is half credit, the Y courses is one full credit. So that equals 3.5 credits that are dedicated to program enrollment and first year completion. Okay, so we know that. At this point, I would probably tell Misha, think about what course load you may want, okay? We'll talk more about course load in a minute. Okay, so that's already taken care of. See, that one was pretty easy. Now what we want to do is build a list of electives. And in that, we might want to talk about including breadth requirements. So this one's going to be a little bit different. So you might be wondering, and this is the question I get often, what are elective courses? Well, there really is no straightforward answer to this. What we do tell students is that it's really any courses that are outside of your program areas. So remember, there's 20 credits that you need to graduate. And programs can take up, depending if you pick a specialist, a major, minor, depending on your combination, the courses you take in your programs could take up anywhere from 10 to 16 credits. So if we look at Misha's situation, Misha has 3.5 credits that are dedicated to program enrollment and first year completion. And Misha has decided 5 credits feels right for the first year. So if we have 5 credits and we remove 3.5 credits directed to programs, that technically means they need to find 1.5 credits of courses to fulfill their course load. So technically, they may have 1.5 credits used towards an elective space. Now, the reason why I say may is because they're not in programs yet. So what happens if they change the program? So electives for first year may change the number of credits. So now to show that, let's take a look. Let's launch scenario number 4. Let's suppose Misha ultimately chooses to pursue psychology and chemistry majors only and decides human geography is great and everything, but they don't necessarily, they're more drawn to psychology and chemistry. So what happens to JEG 100 and 124? 1, A, they are still considered program requirements. B, they were a mistake since Misha doesn't need them for programs. C, they're not a mistake since they still work towards breadth requirements. Also, they allow for Misha to explore. And D, they are electives since they aren't working towards psychology and chemistry. Thank you, Natasha. So I kind of led you to believe that, C and D, and you guys, for the majority, shared. If you picked A, that's okay. Just know they're not technically being used towards programs, so that's why they're not necessarily a program requirement. I'm really impressed that none of you viewed this as a mistake. Like, I think it's common to think, oh, why did I take those courses? But I think it is really important to remember, Misha, this is a time for exploration. Those courses are not a mistake because one, we are working towards 20 credits, so they still serve that purpose. Also, they help with the breadth requirements, right? So that's certainly helpful. And then we're naturally going to be taking electives. So C and D, yeah, pretty self-explanatory there. Okay, we'll stop sharing. Brilliant. Okay, so my big advice for planning for elective courses, maybe don't think about the full 4 years. I know it's pretty tempting to think about all the courses you might be able to take for the first 4 years, but really we don't know. We really need to focus on our first year and make sure that we're setting ourselves up for programs, okay? So focus on the first year. If you really want to, it is helpful to think about these electives, okay? So when we think about that, take your full number of course load minus the number of credits used towards program exploration, and that leaves us with the number of electives. So like we've already said, 5 credits minus 3.5, that leaves Misha with 1.5 credits left of electives. So some things to note, some programs have more first year completion requirements. So I'm speaking more to Rotman Commerce, Life Science, Math and Physical Sciences. You might notice there are a lot of first year completion requirements with program enrollment requirements. So that might not give you lots of room to explore I would say just take the moments that you can explore if you can, but if you can't, focus on programs. Those are going to be your priority. If you and again, breath requirements, don't stress too much about them. They're not, you're going to be taking courses, it's going to work towards the breath requirements, and the breath requirements um is a requirement that you need to complete by the time you graduate. So you still have time in your second, you still have time in upper year courses too, okay? So I wouldn't stress too much. Okay, so a recap from workshop 3, you might be wondering, okay, what exactly are these breadth categories? I'm not going to go too much into them, but the big thing you need to know is that all of our courses fall within a breadth category. So depending on which one, and when we choose our programs, we naturally focus in on one specific category. So if you're going to Misha, or whoever, like you might end up taking a lot of category 3 courses in society and its institution. What this tries to get you to do is take a little bit of everything. So you can do this in one or two options, at least one credit in 4 of the 5 categories above, or at least one credit in 3 out of the 5 and a half credit in the remaining 2. So now I'm going to take you through an activity of how to choose your breadth requirement. So Misha wants to know which breadth requirement categories their programs fall into. They can use that academic calendar. So I'll get Natasha to share the course search. And what I would like you to do is click on it in your chat and then follow me along with this. So this is the academic calendar. So I find this by clicking on this course search, you should be directed right to it. And let's do the first one together, Psych 100. So all I do is type Psych 100 and apply. What's nice is this opens up right here. So if we click on this, this lets us know what the course description is. It tells us a little bit more about exclusions and what, but it also tells us the breadth requirement. So that's nice. It's breadth requirement 2. So we'll add that there. Okay. So let's see. Okay, brilliant. Now what I want you to do, I'm going to give you a bit of time, is take some time to find out what other breadth categories Misha's courses fall into. So Natasha, if you can share, brilliant, thank you. So what I'd ask you to do is go through each of those other ones, identify what breadth requirement they fall into, and then what I want you to do is find the ones that are missing, okay? So, and then share that with us. So for those who might be just wondering how to do that again, I'm going to start with JEG 100. So JEG 100. And you'll want to identify all that apply, okay? So JEG 100, okay, category 5, that's interesting. GGR 124, let's see what that one is. 124. Okay, apply. Okay, category 3, oh, that's nice. Okay, so we got a few. Chem 151, let's see what that is. What's in, this one is category 5. And with Math 135 and 136, I'll let you guys decide, try to find that one out. Some of you might still be in the process of that. And if you miss the opportunity to share, that's totally fine. So the correct answer is BR1 and BR4 are missing. So Psych is BR2. We have lots of BR5. That includes JEG 100 and Chem and Math, and GGR is BR3. So the ones that are missing are BR1 and 4. And what's great is I would say BR4 is the highest, but you certainly, I'm going to trust that the people who pick BR5 are the ones that are like, oh, that one's very popular. So that's same with BR1. So the ones that are missing, oh, sorry, my mistake. BR1 and BR4. Yeah, you guys are correct. So let's move on. You can stop sharing, Natasha. So just a recap of what we did. We wrote out the list of courses Misha needed. We determined how many of the courses were dedicated to programs. We outlined what breadth categories they fall into, and then we identified which ones are missing. So now we want to choose our course load. So I'm going to go through this a little bit faster because I want to make sure we get to our admission categories, okay? So the course load, this one is important because 5 credits is the recommended for fall and winter, but it's not necessarily what you need to take. If you feel more comfortable with a reduced course load, you certainly can. It can be a full-time, just know what the requirement, what the status is for full-time and part-time. So Full-time is 3 credits or more, and part-time is 2.5 credits or less. And there's different things you want to think about. You want to think about your funding resources. And when I talk about that, I mean OSAP or other provincial loans. They might say you need to be a certain status of course enrollment. Immigration is part of that conversation. Graduation timeline, maybe you have a timeline in mind. You might have responsibilities outside of school. Not all of us have like can dedicate all of our time towards school because maybe we have part-time work or people we need to take care of. And so we need to keep that in mind about what realistically we can manage because honestly, 5 credits is very demanding. And then residence may also require a certain status. Now, let's say Misha is looking at this. So a reminder that you're enrolling into both fall and winter courses in July. So Misha might be like, okay, I really like the timetable that's being offered in this case. When I look at this, I see it as unbalanced. So we want to also, when we choose our course load, have a balanced course load. Misha has 6 courses, so 3 credits in the fall and only 2 credits in the, only 2 credits in the winter. Technically, that's 5 credits, but what I would probably tell them, this is not what I would want to see. I want to see balance. So switching that Psych 100 possibly to the winter would allow for that. So now let's build our timetable. So for that, I'm going to go to Timetable Builder. And so Timetable Builder is really helpful because we have the academic calendar, and the academic calendar shows us all the courses that each department offers, but not all those courses are offered every single year. So the Timetable Builder really helps filter that. So the first thing we want to do is to choose our faculty and then the sessions. So it's going to automatically add you to summer, so you want to switch that to fall winter. And so for Misha, I know that they want a geography course. So you can search by course code or you can search by department. So I'm going to search just to see what is offered at geography. And when you click on show more filters, it lets you search by breadth requirements. So if you're looking for a specific BR1, what's great is you can actually find BR1 courses. So that's lovely. You can search by instructor. So maybe you have an idea of an instructor you really like. Maybe you've taken courses with them in the past. You can search for them. Course load is super helpful. So I would probably recommend sticking to 100 level courses for first year. And delivery mode, the majority of our courses are in person, but they could be online too. And they could be asynchronous or synchronous. That basically lets you know if it's online, if it's synchronous, you need to sign in at specific times to join the courses online. Just know if you take an online course, it's not always completely online. You might be expected to be in person for a midterm or final exam. So that's just something to keep in mind. So now we're going to search and we're going to see all the 100 level courses. And as you can see, there's quite a bit. For this one, we can talk about what do these course codes mean? So GTR, that identifies what department, what subject area a course is in. So this is geography. The 101 is really its identifier, but the first number, the 1, lets us know what level it is. So these are all 100 level courses. The H lets us know it's a half credit course. The 1 at the end is actually, like some of us may not know this, but this actually lets us know what campus it's at. So if you come across a 3 or a 5, that's not a St. George course. That might be taking place at UTM or Scarborough. Unless you plan, so if you end up taking courses at Mississauga or Scarborough, I would say book an appointment with an academic advisor. There's some things to keep in mind with that decision. Like they may not work towards programs, so we need to have that conversation. But for that reason, I would stick to ones that end with 1. And the F means it's in the first term, so for fall, and the S means it's in the second term of the session for winter. So let's look, let's say Misha's interested in GR 124 right now. We open it up and there's more information. It lets us know which lectures are being offered, which timings, and if there's tutorials or practicals. Lectures are those ones where there's like a large number of people, like for instance, lecture 5 101 has 150 people. The tutorials are where you meet in smaller groups and there might be a TA. So there'll be more participation, maybe group work or whatnot. Practicals are like labs, so you might notice those. It's important to look through all of them and see if there's tutorial. This one doesn't have a lab, so Misha does not need to add that, but they do need to pick a tutorial. It is mandatory, it's not optional. So the other thing that's helpful to look at is, so there's date and time, availability, It lets us know how many spots are left. Wait list, if it's full, lets us know how many spots are on the wait list. And then enrollment controls are helpful because that lets us know if we have access to them during the priority enrollment period. So R1, this one lets us know that there's a restriction on it. So we can click show explanation, and this lets us know that it's restricted to engineering only. So Misha will never have access to this lecture because they're not in that faculty. The P lets us know if there's priority. So students, and then underneath it, it lets us know who has access to it. So students in first year, architecture students, upper year transfer. And so that's a different faculty, just as a heads up, upper year transfer and non-degree students. So all these students do have, or incoming exchange, non-degree incoming exchange. And so these students do have access during the priority enrollment period. And then this lets us know that if the other students are looking at this and they want to get in, it might change once we get to general enrollment period. But what's nice is Misha is a year one student, so they do have access. So they would add this timetable, and you might notice that it adds here. I'll show you what that means. And then we added tutorials, so we'll add that. And so if we open the timetable here, this lets us know it lets us build it up, which is really nice. It lets you do fall and winter. It lets you pick the right tutorial sections and make sure there's no course conflicts. So the other thing is, okay, we'll hide timetable. Brilliant. Okay, the other thing I want to highlight here, if we go here, more course information has really important information. So again, this is another place where you can find out course descriptions. It lets us know prerequisites. So those are requirements you would need to take before enrolling into this course. In this case, there's no prerequisites, so it's open. Co-requisites are the courses you need to take at the same time. So if we found out there is a co-requisite, you'd need to include that one in your course load as well. Exclusions are the courses that they're very similar. So much so that if you take a course after taking this one listed, you wouldn't get credit for GGR 124. But in this case, Misha hasn't taken any courses, so this exclusion isn't really something you need to worry about. And then it also lets us know about the breadth. Okay, so that's how the timetable works. When we are looking at timetable checks, these are the things we need to look at: prerequisites, co-requisites, exclusions, delivery mode, and enrollment controls. Those are all things to double check with timetables. And so we went over this. The P means some students are given priority at a specific date, and then it lifts. Enrollment means if you see an E under enrollment controls, that means you need to talk to the academic unit. So in that case, if this had an E, Misha would need to talk to a geography department and ask for permission. And R means it's restricted at all times and it never lifts. So now let's talk about enrolling into ACORN. So I've talked about priority enrollment and general enrollment period. So the priority enrollment period starts when you get access, when your first day of course enrollment, and it goes all the way until July 22nd. So during that time, certain groups of students get priority access to certain courses, and usually it's tied to your program or admission category. During that time, you have a maximum number of credits that you are allowed to enroll in, so 2.5 credit per term or 5 credits overall. Then starting July 24th, the general enrollment period starts. And so those priority enrollment periods and priority enrollment controls lifted. So if Misha didn't have access to certain courses, they could start enrolling in during July 24th. The other thing that's notable is that the maximum term load and session load increases. So now Misha or you could enroll into a maximum of 3 credits in the fall and 3 credits in the winter, or a maximum of 6. Now I say that noting that I wouldn't recommend it. Remember, 5 credits is intense enough. I wouldn't go higher than that. The benefit, though, to getting into 3 credits or taking 6 courses is that you can enroll into 6 courses, test out the courses of 10, see how it feels, that time slot, maybe to the instructors, maybe look at the course syllabus and check out the assessments and pick the one that feels the best. The big thing is making sure that you don't get charged for that course. So finding out the refund deadlines and making sure you drop it before that date. Majority of you can take that, and that shouldn't be a problem. So we're nearing the end. So I really, we still have like the Q&A. So I hope you all stick around for that. But there's some reminders for ACORN. So one, be aware of your start time. July 1st is when I would recommend enrolling into ACORN to find your start date and time. To add courses to your enrollment control, your enrollment cart before you start the day. So before your start date. And the reason I say that is because on the day of your first day of course enrollment, you won't have access until your window. So you should probably plan ahead of time, add those courses to your enrollment cart so that when you enter your course enrollment window, all you have to click is enroll, enroll, enroll. It's easy as that. Also, check the availability of your courses the day before your courses. Most of them will still be available because the priority is like the courses you need will like usually give you priority access, so you should have availability. But if some are getting close to it, maybe general enrollment period, it's not looking like you're going to be able to get in the course you want, think about backup program or backup courses. Enroll into additional courses on July 24th, remember, is that general enrollment period. That's when that lifts. We talked a lot about course enrollment. And so I just want to acknowledge that there are lots of things to think about. And so if any of that is overwhelming, what I hope is that these steps really helped ground what steps you need to take and how to build, and then electives kind of help fulfill. There's also the course enrollment checklist that will be able to help as well. And so this really helps you along the way. So that's in the Welcome to Woodsworth. And if you have trouble accessing that, just remember to email us and I can grant you access to that. Now, what we're going to do, there's still time for Q&A, okay? Still time for questions. We're just going to switch how we're going to submit questions. Before it was with the chat. The chat can become very it's hard to find the answers to our questions that way. So we're going to actually open up the Q&A. So now find the three dots under more and then click Q&A and you can submit it that way. And then our advisors will be there to answer your questions that way, okay? Okay, I'm just going, while we're talking, I'm going to just do a little bit of a wrap up. We have a welcome event. If any of you are free and in the area this Saturday, we are going to have a wonderful event on June 13th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a really great time to visit the campus, visit us. You can say hi to me or any of the other advisors, but hopefully who you really say hi to are other students. Like this is a really great time to get to know your class, you know, within Woodsworth, get to know Woodsworth College. We're all very excited to meet you. So this is a really great time just to get a feel of the campus and what it's like to be a Woodsworth College student. Of course, I acknowledge not all of us live in the area, or it might take a plane ride to get here, or maybe we are in a different city that's just a little too far. Whatever the case, we do have a virtual welcome event as well. And so that is June 24th, 10 to 11:30. All right. The other thing I want to highlight here is we have a really great mentorship program within Woodsworth College. It's called the E-Mentorship Program. And so what's wonderful about this, if you have questions that maybe you just wish that you had another person to ask, there are upper year students that are ready to answer those questions for you. So this is like questions like maybe you'd like to know like where's a really good place to study, or with study, like is there a place that's available late? Maybe you know this about yourself and you know that you like to study later than earlier in the morning. So, or maybe you're wondering, when do I buy my textbooks? Is it good to buy it right away? If I'm a commuter student, you know, some of us commute. And if you're commuting for long periods of time, how should you use your commuting time? Like there's all kinds of questions that an academic advisor we have trouble answering because we're not really in with, it's been a while since we've gone through it. So chatting with upper year students can be helpful for that. And then just know this continues on into first year. So it doesn't stop into summer. Like there might be questions in first year that you can ask. And with those questions, just know we're here as well. There were wonderful academic advisors. There's Duran here, along with Winnie and Anna, and Natasha as well. We're all here at Woodsworth College Registrar Office, and we are all available to answer your questions. So Just know it's normal to have continuous questions, and what I would um, challenge you is that if you have questions, don't just ask them. You know what I mean? Just ask them because that's the only way we're going to. Just reach out, and that's the only way we can answer them for you is if you reach out. I never like to talk about scams, but it is part of our whole process here. So the scam emails are getting quite good. So I just want to flag this to all of you. Just be extra cautious when reading emails. If you feel pressure to act immediately or send money or passwords or personal emails, just know that that's a flag. Um, that might be a scam email. We will never ask you to send payment via Interact e-transfer. So what you do instead, just don't interact with it, or give us, if you're really unsure, like maybe someone might say, pay us or you're removed from all your courses. Well, that sounds a little scary. You can call us and we'll tell you whether or not that's true or not. Okay. Chances are it's not. But still, we can talk about it. We also have some wonderful workshops that are coming up. So we have more workshops. One is hidden curriculum. This talks about all the hidden rules that go about being a university student. There's certain things that some people know that we don't, and you may not find out about them until your second or third year. So someone mentioned internship programs. Other people might be interested in research. Some of us may not know about those things. So, or maybe how to talk to an instructor. Like instructors can be a really great resource throughout your whole program, like I've heard students go talk to instructors and the next thing that you know, they're part of a opportunity with that instructor. You can't go in expecting that, but after building rapport and having that relationship, you may be able to talk to them, and that can, so I guess this hidden curriculum really opens up all the ways that you can make the most out of your university education. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely encourage you to register. And then workshop 6. This one's all about finances because, of course, there is a money component that's part of it. And in August is when we'll be ready to pay that minimum payment for registration. And if this is something you have more questions about, please join us July 23rd. So all of those you can register for. And of course, the main thing on our mind right now is course enrollment, I think. And that's normal. And you might come across this, come away from this, and then be like, I have more questions. Just know that that's normal. And we have a whole hour on July 10th and then another hour on July 14th, just dedicated to your questions. So a place where you can just ask your questions. You can also just listen and see what other people are asking, because sometimes it's nice to find out, oh, that person has a question. I also have that question. So it is nice to just know. It reminds us of the things we may not be thinking of. So it is helpful. And that brings us to the end. Talk